former independent counsel, Ken Starr. Great to see you, Ken. Let's, where do we start with all of this? Let's start with the letter where Congress essentially is saying, you know, we've got a grand jury investigation here. We want to know what's going on. You know, this is a story, the Hunter Biden laptop, that everybody has dismissed over the course of the last year. Now we are finding out, indeed, it's real. And not only are there issues about Hunter Biden, but the president may indeed be linked to some of these business dealings. Congress is saying, we want to know what's going on, and the American public does too. Your thoughts?
Yes, well, it's very understandable, Jackie, that Congress wants to know, eager to know, the American people should want to know. But there is a problem, and that is it's an ongoing investigation, and that means there's a grand jury investigation. And the Justice Department is constrained by law. They cannot disclose specific information that is before a grand jury. So that is a real problem in terms of, quote, briefing members of Congress about what's happening in a live and ongoing investigation. But it does raise the question of, well, who's in charge of this investigation? That's a different issue, but that's the issue that I think cries out as we do find out this information that is implicating, at least potentially, the president, members of the family, and so forth. There is a serious question about how the investigation is being conducted under the auspices of the Justice Department.
Right. And that's the issue, right? Really, is this Justice Department equipped to fully be independent and see this investigation through? Your former independent counsel, many are saying this is the time that independent counsel should be appointed so that essentially the public has some confidence that this is not Biden's Justice Department doing bidding for him, but that, in fact, a real impartial investigation happens.
And Jackie, that is the key question. Is there independence and the appearance of independence? No one needs to question the integrity of the United States Attorney in Delaware who's conducting the investigation. I certainly do not. He's a very respected person. But the problem is that he is part of the Justice Department. That means he's part of the executive branch. That means he reports to Merrick Garland. And who does Merrick Garland report to? The President of the United States. And we have a rule on the books, a regulation that we're not talking about what's better. We're talking about what is required under the regulations that have the binding effect of law. And I read those regulations as requiring Attorney General Garland, in light of what we know and we're continuing to find out more, to appoint someone who's truly independent of the Justice Department, and that's a special counsel.
And this is really interesting because we're finding out more about the Durham probe as well. And this is where I think it becomes relevant to the conversation that we're having. Essentially, at that time, you had certain evidence that was presented and decisions that were made. Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein did appoint Robert Mueller to investigate Trump's ties to Russia. Durham is now looking back on that investigation and looking through the process, the procedural process, all the mistakes that were made, and some of the false information that was presented as well to move that ball forward. And so you sit here and say, you know, we went through that whole process with Trump and the Mueller probe, and yet here you've got an attorney general who's reluctant at all to even, you know, appoint a special counsel to look into this. There are a lot of people say, what is going on with the system?
Exactly, and it's a fair question, and I've been asking that question for months now in light of the fact that the president himself, in addition to obviously Hunter Biden, and the information that is coming out suggests that this is a very serious investigation, but we're also seeing through emails and so forth are suggestions, now there's suggestions, that the president himself may be implicated. Well, how do we get to the bottom of that? Exactly right. Just as a special counsel was appointed during the Trump administration, that needs to be done now, and it's frankly overdue.
I'm going to take another minute with you. I hope my producers don't kill me here, but we have a soundbite talking about the media's handling of this as well. I want you to listen and react.
The dam is breaking. I think a lot of information is coming out. The Hunter Biden's laptop, which now the mainstream media is reluctantly admitting that, again, they're only admitting that portions of it are authentic.
You know, this is really interesting because at first they said that the laptop essentially was a GOP, red herring, if you will, that it didn't exist, it wasn't real. Now the mainstream media has had to turn back a little bit, acknowledge that there actually is something to look at here, and yet he's right. They're only admitting that portions of the evidence on the laptop are relevant or authentic. You know, the way this was handled, essentially before the election, when this story broke, the way it was tamped down by the media, the way social media banned the post from getting out there and being disseminated. Your thoughts on how that impacts the whole investigation?
Well, I think that the investigation was very materially affected by the fact that there was essentially media complicity in not being interested in getting the facts out. There really was no basis for questioning the authenticity of the laptop, and yet even intelligence officials at very high levels went along with this narrative that this is Russian disinformation. So it was a terrible and dark stain on the media and then those who were complicit with the media. But in the better late than never category, the more that we're finding out, even if it's grudging, is very, very worrisome in terms of what the president may have been involved in.
Yeah, and we shall see. I will say our network and Fox News, we stayed on this story. We didn't let go of it. We kept following it. You know, in the beginning, we said this information is out there. We have to look into it. And we brought that information to our viewers every step of the way. Ken Starr, thank you. Great to see you.